84 examples of movies for entrepreneurs and startups. Number 84, Jerry Maguire. Jerry Maguire took the world by storm when it came out in the late 90s. Fantastic movie.
Yeah, what can I do for you?
Show me the money.
Right? It was this fantastic film that was about an entrepreneur that wanted to disrupt an entire industry, not allowing a lot of the naysayers to get in his way, but also it shows how people have to be focused on their business partners and how working together with difficult clients can ultimately result in major benefits. You had me at hello. There's so many great little quotes in this movie. Check this one out if you haven't seen it. It's called Jerry Maguire. It's worth a watch. Number 83, Office Space. Office Space was one of those movies that I probably watched once a week throughout college. I was so afraid of going into the office world, the cubicle environment, that I really avoided it at all costs, and that's probably why I'm in the startup scene. There are so many great quotes from this movie.
I gotta get out of here. I think I'm gonna lose it.
Uh-oh. Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Right? There's a million little funny things from Mike Judge, the creator of Beavis and Butthead, King of the Hill. This is one of those movies, if you haven't seen it, it really articulates what it's like to work in a business where you feel like you're not valued. And there's so many great takeaways from this movie as to why you should be focused on having more technical people at the top, how to find good leadership, what leadership looks like, why culture is so important to having a really positive environment. There's so much good stuff inside of Office Space. Number 82, Erin Brockovich. Erin Brockovich, I don't care who you are, is an amazing flick. It's Julia Roberts showing basically how humans and some of the empathy kind of related skills are so powerful within any line of business. It was a single mother that basically was trying to make ends meet, finds herself in a job within a law office, and starts working the way that she wants to work, changes the entire culture of the way that an office actually operates, and goes against some of the biggest players in the world. Some of my favorite quotes come out of this movie.
Okay, look, I think we got off on the wrong foot here. That's all you got, lady. 2 wrong feet in fucking ugly shoes.
Absolutely love this flick. It's one of those things where you really feel for the characters in the movie, and I gotta tell you, it's a great story. Anybody that's ever owned a business or ever worked their way up trying to go against some big competitors will absolutely love Erin Brockovich. Number 80, Ray Kroc's story about the founder. So the founder is about the founder of McDonald's, and the whole idea of McDonald's is really interesting. This was a guy that started basically trying to optimize the assembly line that is the fast food business, but he originally got into it by making milkshakes. It's this whole crazy thing, and by the way, not the most likable character, but really interesting as he's navigating bad business partners. He's trying to disrupt an industry that doesn't want anything to do with him, which honestly is what the startup scene is all about. When you're brand new to a market and people aren't used to using your product, service, or a tool, they're not going to like you, they're not going to be comfortable with you. How do you overcome that? How do you pivot? How do you make sure that you're able to continue to run your business? The reality is there's so much interesting stuff in the movie The Founder. It's totally worth watching, and it's a great flick. Number 79, Patch Adams. This is one of my favorite movies from Robin Williams. This is a story about somebody that maybe didn't fit the mold, somebody that wasn't the regular type of doctor going through med school. There's a great scene with Philip Seymour Hoffman where he's not understanding, how do you go about doing this? I've seen you don't study. Some people have this innate natural talent. There's plenty of people probably watching this that do. It's interesting mixing an element of empathy, an element of these human soft qualities, bedside manner, and all these other things, and testing the waters in real world environments. I think this is one of the most fascinating flicks when it comes to how do you take this old school traditional sense of what a doctor is and what a doctor is supposed to be and what it became, which is somebody that's able to relate to patients, make them feel better, make them more comfortable. I think there's so much good stuff in here. Patch Adams, totally worth watching. Check it out. Number 78, Risky Business. This is Tom Cruise's probably breakout movie. Everybody's remembering that scene where he scoots across kind of the living room floor. In his underwear, tighty whities. This movie probably doesn't stand up to #MeToo, but if you have a little bit more of a dark sense of humor, it's fascinating. It's about a high school student that basically needs to raise a bunch of money after he screws up his parents' car and messes up the house. It's a really interesting flick. It's got some dark areas. The guy's working with escorts. It's crazy, but it's totally worth watching, and there's definitely some nostalgia in there. If you've seen it already, rewatch it. If you haven't seen it, I gotta tell you, it's a great flick. It's got a couple of chuckles in it. Worth checking out. Risky Business with Tom Cruise. Number 76, Alec Baldwin's probably breakout and best performance. My favorite performance, Glengarry Glen Ross. This is where the quote, "coffee's for closers" comes from.
Coffee's for closers only.
I used to see that in some of the sales offices that I stepped into, where I had to use the restroom as a young salesperson. He goes, "The restroom's for closers." This is one of those movies that is hardcore salesy, and it's almost laughable these days in terms of the way that it was this really one-sided kind of character out of the 90s and early 2000s, which is basically first place is a brand new car, second place is steak knives, third place is you're fired. This is an old school mindset, but it's really nostalgic in its own bizarre little way to see some of the nuances that were the way that people thought about selling in the 90s and early 2000s. This is honestly one of the more fascinating films that really takes place in its own little bubble. And I do think that there are some really overconfident elements to this film that every entrepreneur needs to tell themselves to continue to wake up every day and go to work. Number 74, probably my top 3 favorite movies of all time, Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump, there are so many great little quotes in that movie. This movie is inspiring for so many different reasons. It shows you that with the right mindset, with the right drive, with sometimes just stumbling into things accidentally, you can do anything. This movie takes a character that obviously doesn't have all the marbles up there and is able to overcome so many bad situations, taking your opportunities at the right place and time. There are so many great moments in this movie that show how entrepreneurs can go from nothing and make the right connections and work with people and accomplish amazing things. I can't tell you how many great quotes come from this movie. I still go back and forth with my girlfriend on this one. Oh, you stupid or something? I can't tell you. Watch this movie if you haven't seen it already, or rewatch it. It teaches principles, it teaches morals, it teaches everything. Check it out. Number 73, Chocolat. This movie actually was really fascinating because it came into the market at a time where there was a lot more atheism kind of in movies, right? This movie is about somebody that is entrepreneurial, wants to open a chocolate business, but the church is saying, what is this? This isn't good for our town. This is exploitative. This is what about the children? Like that kind of stuff. It's a really interesting look of how somebody believes in their business and believes in their product so strongly that they're willing to throw caution to the wind and battle against all the odds in order to make it. Chocolat is so fascinating. It's a really cool tale. If you haven't seen it, it's an award-winning flick. Please take some time to check out this movie. It's so underrated. Number 72, Catch Me If You Can. Really great flick. This is Leonardo DiCaprio's probably one of his top 5 films. I gotta tell you, this movie is how swindlers and scumbags kind of look at the best case scenario of, hey, if you walk the walk, talk the talk, then you probably got what it takes. The reality is, it's a guy that is a scam artist that realizes he can trick people using not only his confidence, but a little je ne sais quoi, a little bit of, kind of charisma. I gotta tell you, I loved watching this movie when I was much younger because it fascinated me that somebody could articulate a number of sentences in a row that would trick everybody in a room into thinking this person knows what they're talking about. If you lack confidence, or even if you have a ton of confidence, you might be able to relate to this flick. Check it out, Catch Me If You Can, one of the best movies from Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio. My name's Taylor Ryan. I put out a ton of content. Like and subscribe. I run a growth hacking agency in Copenhagen, Denmark. Make sure to subscribe to see more of this stuff.